G'day guys, my name is Christopher, your friendly neighborhood artist, and I just checked YouTube and saw that I have 700 subscribers, which totally blows my mind. Thank you so much if you've been one of those people that have clicked subscribe. If you haven't, what the heck are you doing? It's just down there. Today I'm going to be reviewing these pretty looking ParKoo markers. Well, they look pretty, but I have no idea what they're actually like. They come in a super pretty case and they've got lovely rainbowness. I'm excited to check them out. I hope you are too. Let's go on an art adventure. Okay, let's crack these guys open. So they're secured in quite tightly. They've got their clips on a piece of plastic. And they look pretty much at first glance like a Sharpie, some sort of permanent marker, and with a fine tip, very similar to a Sharpie. So let's swatch them out. I'll use some Bristol board to start with. I'd always recommend having some sort of backing sheet behind your paper, but I'm just gonna test to see if they bleed through or not. Here's yellow. Just like a Sharpie, you can have a fine top tip or you can turn it on the angle to get a broader stroke. And did I see bleed through? Nope, not from a single layer. And I'll just time-lapse swatching out all of these. Okay, my first impressions are that these are really good quality markers, especially for the price. Last I checked on Amazon, they were $9.99 for 36 colors, which is amazing. They feel and look very much like a Sharpie pen to me, except I think that they're way better quality. Sharpies have a really strong off-putting odor to me. These don't really smell at all unless you bring it up to your nose, or at least to my nose and close, and then there's a faint alcohol smell. So I guess that they are alcohol markers. There's so many colors for the price. I think that is an incredible deal for 36 for $9.99, and that they lay down with fairly consistent uniform marking, much more than Sharpies do. I find Sharpies personally to be more streaky than these are. I also enjoy the color selection and that there's really great selection of grays and neutrals as well as some bright colors. It's always nice if there's some pale tones. I'd like a few more of those, such as these ones here, but there's a few for the number in the set. And I really overall like them, except for the fact, and I think this bugs many artists, there's no color names. Why aren't there color names put on things? It's always so fun and exciting and just useful and handy to have color names to refer to rather than having to go back and try to figure out which thing matches with which. Because if there's a color name, you can just write it down. There's not even a color number. I don't think Sharpies have that either, but it's just something that I would always like to see. Let's check if they have bled through. And on Bristol board, there's no bleed through to the next page. There's some slight ghosting on the back, but you're not going to be using the back of a piece of Bristol board anyway, or at least I wouldn't assume that you would. Maybe some kids would, but I wouldn't be. Of course, for printer paper, I'm sure it's going to bleed through. Let's get a couple of sheets of printer paper and test that. And I'll try it with a light color and a dark color. So we've got our yellow here. And then there was a lovely deep blue before, but this might be it. Okay, so they're starting to get a little bit of dots of the blue, but still not so bad for the amount of pigment and the lightness of the paper. And of course there's strong ghosting or bleed through on the back, but you know, these are alcohol based markers. That always happens to alcohol based markers, and if I got a Copic for reference, it'd be way worse actually. So here's a couple of Copics for reference. And of course, a Copic is going to have a smoother blend. Okay, so you can see for the Copic, the bleed through is actually way worse than it was for these. Overall, I think these are really good quality markers. If you do have any questions or things that you've thought about, let me know in the comments below and I'll try to get back to answer them for you. They're also said to be able to write on plastic, glass, wood, and all sorts of other things. So I did want to check that really quickly. Like a little flower. It feels and looks very much like a Sharpie would on plastic, which means that for me personally, I find that I can erase it off, especially if I'm quick. Maybe then if I allow it to sit for a while, it's going to set. So if I rub immediately, there's a little bit of movement. But actually, it seems to work better than a Sharpie from the ones that I've tried. Okay, so here's a Sharpie in comparison to a ParKoo marker. The ParKoo marker is actually very, very similar. Identical size, I guess. Yeah, exactly the same size. Very similar in almost every regard. Let's have a look at the tips. Really similar for the tips as well. It looks like you get a little bit more space to work with for the ParKoo marker. There's just a little bit more nib showing. The caps are so identical, I can't even remember which one is from which. I guess that was the Sharpie one, yeah. And then let's just check this again, and then feels very much the same. Yeah, the ParKoo marker smells a little bit less than the Sharpie from my point of view anyway. I don't have nearly as many colors in the Sharpie range. Partly because the Sharpies cost way, way more than these ParKoo markers did. And let's also try them on glass while I wait for that to set. This glass is a little bit dirty on the inside, sorry, from working with watercolors and inks. It's one of my water jars. But it could be cool to make a cute little square design on the outside. That color showed up so well, that first color. This one not so much. So I guess it's a matter of experimenting on different surfaces and seeing what you get. But for glass it could be fun to have more transparent colors. And I'll also compare to a Sharpie. Yeah, there's a Sharpie. Feels very, very similar. Okay, let's go back to this and see if they've set. So yeah, this has set perfectly. It is permanent on plastic. And the Sharpie is too. I'm guessing, of course, if you rub at it for a while, it's going to come off. But, you know, as advertised, it works on plastic, which is fantastic. It worked on paper, which is fantastic. Let's see about glass. Yeah, it's starting to dry on the glass as well. So is the Sharpie. Yeah, they're really great. So they're working as advertised. I'm going to try to put them into practice with a quick portrait sketch now. I think I'll do a 5 marker challenge because there's a lot of colors here. Let's get the Sharpies back out the road and then I'll choose, and then I'll choose some of these. One of my water containers will do. Do they fit? Yeah. And then cover. And then a purpley color. So I guess I didn't mix these up well enough, or I just was very lucky to choose things that blended together well or match really well. I'm excited for this color selection. Let's go on an art adventure and draw something. For those people that are new to my channel, I'm trying to get better at drawing portraits, particularly getting faster and developing my own style. Not so much worried about accuracy, but I'd like to improve for that as well. And I'm using the website Reddit, and particularly the subreddit redditgetsdrawn. You can see the really lovely reference photo from LadyKhadgar, I hope I said your name right, that I've placed up there. And that was just posted today at Reddit Gets Drawn. There's just constantly new portraits being posted all of the time. So I'm working from that reference photo, and I'm just drawing on the Bristol board paper that I use to do my color swatches on, and I'm using a Prismacolor Colorase pencil in violet or purple to be able to do the outlines. Because I got a grey, I decided to do the outline inking with that grey rather than a black ink pen, but there is a little bit of bleeding out of these pens. I knew it would be the case, it's like Sharpies as well, and I probably should have used a black ink pen for the fine details, like for the eyelashes and the mouth, but overall it worked quite well. And then for the face and the shirt, I used some of the pink to do the outlines. And for her glasses, I used the dark blue. So overall, they worked okay as liner pens, and I think that that's a strength of them if you wanted to be considering getting some permanent markers for lining. I also, as I showed before, think they're really great for things that are not just paper, like wood and plastic and so forth. In terms of the shading itself, I was able to get fairly flat shades as well by tilting the pen and working at an angle. And at first I'm really pretty happy with the effect that I'm getting, but I feel like the contrast between the areas I leave white and the pale pink is just too much. And so then I decide to add some shadows with the purples and blue. And eventually I just still feel that the highlight areas are just too strong compared to the pink. And I end up going in and covering the whole face in pink and blending it all out. I think maybe I went too far with that. It was just a bit of a jump or too harsh of a contrast between the two. Overall, though, I think it worked out okay, but then I feel like I need to darken the contrast of her shirt. And I go, I think, way too far with the shirt and a little bit too far with the hair in terms of darkening things up. But overall, for the 5 colors that I had, I think it worked okay. Myself, I would have gone in with a white gel pen afterwards. Particularly, I've enjoyed using white gel pen on hair lately and showing some highlights as well, of course, with white gel pen. And I very nearly decided to do that for this portrait as well, but at the last minute, I decided to just keep it to the ParKoo permanent markers. By the way, I should mention that ParKoo sent me these markers for free, and I was able to just give an honest review for them, but I think that viewers should be aware of that when that happens, and I'll leave a link down below for you if you're interested in getting these pens. And like I said, I think that they're great pens. I think they're actually slightly better quality than Sharpie markers at a cheaper price, and the smell is a little bit less from my perspective anyway, and they're slightly less streaky and just a little bit easier to use because there's a little bit more tip showing, and of course they're much cheaper than Sharpie markers, so they're definitely a win in my book, and I'm glad that I discovered them and stumbled across them, and I'll definitely be using them for a range of different things, maybe more for card making or crafting or doing lettering sorts of things rather than fine art and portrait work, but that's because I also own a whole bunch of Copic markers. If you don't own any alcohol markers already or brush markers already, these are a really great starting point to see, would you actually enjoy using markers? They're great for the price. In fact, you get all 36 for the price of less than 2 Copic markers. So that's a huge steal. And definitely you do not want to go out and invest in Copic markers if you're not sure that you enjoy using markers. It's just a waste of money. They cost hundreds and hundreds of dollars. So I definitely recommend these for beginners or for people starting out, and you can really explore what markers are capable of and have some fun with them, and they layer quite well, and that they're just really interesting to use. At least from my personal point of view anyway. And I'd love to hear what you guys think in the comments below, if you've used these before or what you think of them based on my review. I also, of course, am always curious to see what you think about for the portrait and my style. I've got to say this isn't my best work from my perspective anyway, but I did have a lot of fun drawing this portrait like I do with any portrait. And I think if I had been able to choose from any color, I think I would have been able to do a better job and an interesting job, but hopefully you still enjoyed it. So don't forget, if you're new here, to hit subscribe and the notification bell as well. And as always, create more and consume less. Take care, everyone. Bye.